Hey everyone, so it's been a little while since I made a video because I wanted to sit on things a little bit and do less of a reactionary video and more of a contemplative video. And there's two subjects that I want to broach today. One is to do with myself and with Banshee Interactive, which is my leaving of the community, at least for a little while, because I believe I was wrong about the community. And second of all is I wanted to approach the subject of maybe not video game critique, because that's a long and arduous process to go into where that's gone to, which is not where it should be. But at least in the rating systems, I feel like it would be quite easy to talk about the rating systems and just how crazy they've become. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I think first of all, what I'll do is I'll talk about the community a little bit first and why I've left, and then afterwards I will tell you exactly where I think the video game journalism, whatever you want to call it, review sphere has gone wrong with how they rate video games. I think rating things out of 10 is simple shorthand, easy for anyone to understand. I don't think there's a problem necessarily with numeric ratings. I think they serve a place. I don't think they are the be all and end all, but I do think how they are rating them on that sliding scale is kind of, well, I don't even have to argue with this, but there's just no set standard, and there's way too much personal preference that goes into what should be an objective thing. Let me just pull my guitar out so you've got something a little bit nice to have a little look at. That, and I did give it a clean, but I've gone on to play it since then. Here we are. So at least you've got something a little bit more interesting, a little bit more eye candy in frame now. Today I've not got much to do. It's raining pretty hard here, and later on today I've got to take my car out for a service, and in Thailand they recommend services every 6 months, which I think is a bit of a, I don't think it needs a service every 6 months, but I'm not going to void the warranty over the cost price of a service, so we'll go get that done. Bit of a pain, but whatever. As I was saying, I have decided to leave the video game community, and I will read out my leaving post that I posted on Reddit, which is where I've been doing most of my community research, even though I have also been around YouTube a little bit as well. Recently on my D Roberts photo account, I haven't been commenting on my Banshee account, only because I've got my full list of subscribers on my old, like all the stuff that I used to subscribe to on my personal YouTube, because that was my personal YouTube for the longest time. Like, whatever, anyway. I never took YouTube seriously, and that's one of the reasons why it's kind of a nightmare. Over on D Roberts photo here, I've tried to take it a little bit more seriously. But where do I begin? I think I was wrong about the community. I don't think the community is wrong per se, and I'll go into why now. Because when I started going online, I would say that we're probably second wave of internet users, but at the same time I think that we are the ones who sort of saw it through, a little bit like, Venom is original black metal, but when you think about black metal, it's obviously Mayhem, Emperor, over, and the rest of it, you know, the other band. But anyway, no, you know what, I'm gonna say it, Burzum, because you have to sometimes take away the art from the artist. I don't think it's possible most of the time, but I think that, you know, you can't say that Burzum wasn't a part of second wave black metal, or a huge part of second wave black metal, and didn't influence a lot of heavy music, because they did. Just because Vark Vines was the person that he ended up being doesn't take away from what Burzum did for the genre. But it's also complicated. It's, where do you draw the line? Where do you start blacklisting? Do you know, does it become like Harry Potter, and we don't say that name here? And I think that there's certainly a line where it gets there. I think the Lost Prophets passed that line. I think the Lost Prophets blew past that line like a drag car across the speed trap. I think that there's not a circle in hell low enough for him. Vines, I think, is rapidly approaching that too. But I guess we're way off topic here, aren't we? This is nothing to do with video games at all. But as I was saying, you know, I think that when I sort of started going onto the internet, it was the same as sort of like Emperor. Let's use Ishan, because, you know, he's an absolute phenom, amazing guy, and gone on to do amazing stuff way past the genre. So he's a nice clean example, right? You know, or, you know, Enslaved, Over, so many, Paradise Lost. You know, there's more good examples than bad from that first wave, let's say. And I feel like that when it comes to the internet. You know, I was, at the time, most of my efforts were focused on like JDM culture, JDM car culture, and I was massive into the forums, and even sort of like, I used to dabble, because, you know, video games has been my hobby my whole life, and it used to be a place where participants would exchange information, peers would exchange information. Like, I was, you know, grassroots in my EG6, and there was other people who were also grassroots in theirs, and EK9s, and some people who were, you know, sort of like semi-pro were coming in, and they were, you know, talking about, you know, their experiences, and everyone had sort of a baseline of knowledge and understanding on the subject that we were talking about. And also the people asking questions were receptive to being given information. They were understanding that their pool of knowledge was finite, limited, and the whole idea of them going there was to open that pool up. So I think that my mistake is that I approached the internet in 2026 the same way that I approached the internet in 2006, when it's no longer the case. I think that, you know, back in 2006, the internet was a strange place that only sort of like nerds went to, like us. You had to be really into cars to join like the Type R forums and stuff. But now everyone's on Reddit, everyone's on that sub, you know, and there was a lot of blogging culture, and there was a lot of back and forth. You know, people who read blogs tended to be people who wrote blogs. So when I started my blog, you know, I would talk to other people who had blogs, and they would talk back, and it would be the same. And then that sort of migrated to YouTube, you know, like, and I was there, you know, right in the beginning when, you know, you could have a chat with Metal Jesus or these guys, you know, or, you know, he was just Jason back then, and, you know, I wouldn't call us friends. We never got to the point where we were friends, especially because, you know, he was on the other side of the pond. But, you know, like Pete, SNES-tastic and stuff, he was never that far. He was just across the water from me, you know, whereas I was in Wales, and he was just across the water from me, you know. So there was sort of a mini culture, and we all did get to know each other, you know. Like my own memory is not that good. I couldn't tell you the names of everyone, but, you know, the people I worked with, the people who worked around us, especially when I started getting into sort of the retail side of video games and became a PlayStation representative and stuff, you know, and you start getting to know like the Ubisoft representatives, because, you know, there would be a lot of overlap, especially when we were promoting third-party games, and the same goes for sort of Konami UK. We were very, very, Konami UK were absolutely great. They were one of the first to really embrace social media back when it was Twitter, you know, and there would be a lot of differing opinions as well. Like the opinions of Americans and what the Americans grew up with informed their tastes the same way, you know, like us from the UK, our tastes would be very different. They were very different cultures, whereas now it's sort of homogenized into one, and it's kind of like, oh, if you don't like this, or like, it's both ends of the spectrum. There's like bandwagoners, and then those who sort of like want to be different for the sake of being different. But if you're different, you have to be the same kind of different, you know. Like, if you don't like the live service or the competition or the sweaty side of gaming, like, you have to be an indie enjoyer, you know. And you know, everyone knows how I feel about indie. I feel like most things that are labeled indie aren't independent. Most of it is backed, most of it is financed, and it's just because it's sold as independent. It's not necessarily independent, and it's certainly not clean or pure in the way that you know, like Expedition 33 is. I haven't played that game, so I can't speak too much about it, but I've done quite a bit of research into Sandfall, because I do think that it sets quite a precedent. But it's not a game that really interests me, because I just feel like I've played quite a lot of European games that are inspired by French, especially French, because French have a deep love of Japanese media, because if they're translating, right, so, you know, if they're translating, say, a Marvel, DC, Image comic, they're translating from English to French anyway, because that's how the French are. The French don't really consume anything outside of French, whereas, you know, the Germans, the Nordics, the Scandinavians, they will read in English. The French don't. As a rule, as a hard, not hard and fast, but as a loose rule, and obviously they have their own sort of history, but they don't take that. They don't have that sort of like wall that English has, because with English we have our own media. So to translate it, that's a wall that you have to overcome. And the French have that anyway, because like they view English as a separate culture. So, you know, that wall is there anyway. So they've always had more respect for Japanese cultural arts, exported media, from anime, manga, to video games. So there's a lot of European stuff that is heavily inspired by sort of like JRPGs and stuff like that. They tend to be very different. They're not the same, because what makes this is a new video for another day, but you have to think, what makes a JRPG a JRPG? And I think the biggest ones that sort of put a spanner in this works is Elden Ring a JRPG, is Dark Souls a JRPG, is Kingsfield a JRPG, is Eternal Ring a JRPG. I think that, you know, there's no real arguing Enchanted Arms. It is a JRPG. You know, it's made by all these are FromSoft titles. If you don't know, but it would be hard, right? It would be hard to call is Elden Ring an RPG? Yes. Is Elden Ring made by a Japanese company in Japan? Yes. Does Elden Ring hold a lot of Japaneseisms? Yes, it does. The story is told in a very Japanese way. But is it also wrote by an American? Yes, it is. Is it set in what is undeniably a European fantasy setting? Yes, it is. But then again, so is Final Fantasy, and that is a JRPG. So you know, like it's very difficult to define what makes a JRPG, the J part. And I believe it's the culture. It's not just the aesthetics. It's the culture. There's a cultural. There's a way these stories are told. Themes. They're very socialist. They're very, you know. I think that's where as well why millennials kind of are the way we are. I think millennials lean way more socialist than Gen Xers. Certainly. What are they called? Gen Z. I think that we lean very socialist because a lot of the media that we grew up with was Japanese, and Japanese traits and values that they hold dear are communal, whereas I think Gen X leaned heavily into individualism, Gen Z even more heavily into individualism. I don't think that, you know, like when you look at party building or you know, like the rock, paper, scissors elements of even Pokemon, you know, it's not just the power of friendship, it's we can't do this alone. Even if your Charizard is level 50, you know, he's going to get taken out by a water type at some point. That's embedded into Japanese, whereas like in the Western world, you're the one, you know, you're the Dragonborn. That's the perfect example, right? You're the Dragonborn. No one else can speak this dragon language. No one else can save the world of Skyrim. Even though it seems like it was far too late for Morrowind. And what is Skyrim? I think that, you know, like those are mature themes that do creep in, but aren't necessarily pivotal to Western media. Like what is Skyrim? Is Skyrim a place? Is Skyrim a people? You know, and you've got that going on with like the what they call the Grey Mains, and stuff. You know, and with a bit of imperialism and that, but it's like heavy. Like if you look at Final Fantasy 7, you know, it's heavy. It's like who are you helping? Are you helping Shinra? Are you helping the people? Because we see from the prologue that those are vastly different things. So I think that, you know, there's that element to Japanese role-playing games. Very rarely are you the one. Very rarely you know, like, you get given the choice to do the right thing or to do the easy thing. And that choice is usually thrust upon you from outside factors, whether it be like Cloud, you know, like Zack chose to be Soldier First Class, but Cloud, even though Cloud chose to pursue that career and chose to be a soldier in Shinra, it was his time in the live stream and in the Mako, and you know, all that memory bleed. Like he didn't choose to be the Cloud Strife we see in Final Fantasy VII. Certainly doesn't choose to be the Cloud Strife we see in Final Fantasy VII Disc 3. Whereas same with Tifa a little bit. I think that Tifa is kind of the opposite. I feel like Tifa did choose at every step of the way. I feel like Tifa had the choice and she chose. And I think this is why Tifa is a very powerful character. I think that Tifa gets overlooked way too much. in Final Fantasy VII compared to like Ares or Aerith, I suppose. But I will always know her as Ares because that's what she was on my UK copy. So Aerith, she gets the limelight, right? She steals the limelight as the female protagonist of Final Fantasy VII. But I think Tifa is a far stronger character. I think Tifa, like I said, Tifa chooses at every point. Like when the time comes, she takes over the group. She leads the group arguably better than Cloud ever did. I feel like that, you know, Tifa is the backbone of the group. I don't think Barrett could have really... Barrett was the leader of you know, his Splinter Cell. But I don't really think Barrett would have got anywhere without Tifa holding the fort. So, you know, there's a lot of, like I said, socialist, dependent, we all need each other to survive, kind of. And obviously you've got the, you know, sort of post-war trauma. You get to see that with the weapons, with the launching of the big gun. You know, in just like when you talk about Hojo and the experiments and, you know, the aftermath of the weaponization of atomics and stuff, there's a lot of different parallels. And this is just Final Fantasy VII. You know, this is just one of many JRPGs that tackle these themes in their own ways. Whereas I think that Western RPGs sort of, it's that individualism, which is the point I'm trying to make with forums, social media, and the community. I feel like that individualism has taken over, but it's so cookie cutter. It's kind of embarrassing to see. You know, people will go to war on the keyboard. You know, I could just imagine their keyboards like smooth from use. Angrily type. No, you're wrong because someone else said this. Rather than just looking at what's in front of them and going, you know what, let's try and have a look at this, let's try and have a conversation about this and figure it out. But people don't want to figure it out. People just want to be told. Everyone wants to be the star of their own show, but no one wants to produce it. No one wants to finance it. No one wants to do all the pre-production. No one wants to edit it. They just want to go up, sing their song, and come out of the spotlight before it gets too hot. And that's why I'm leaving the community. I just don't think that there's any value to it anymore. I just don't think that, you know, anyone who is worth speaking with is participating. And even more egregious than that, before, like I said, we would come in and it would be people who are participating, talking to each other because we were trying to do a thing. And this is where I'll switch from cars to photography, because I think cars still have that. I think cars still have that element of sport. You know, I think the end goal of automotive culture is either motorsport or imitating motorsport. So there is still quite a clear hierarchy. You know, that's why things like the GT3 RS exist, obviously, or the 430 Scuderia. That's why it's so expensive now. Things like Type Rs, GTRs, anything with a red badge. If it's got a red badge on it, people want, you know, people make fun of that. I've written a whole article about red, and the iconism of what red means, from the Red Baron to, you know, like the red on a Type R badge, or the red on, it's in my cabinet, but the red on my A7R. Red usually designates that it's something powerful. Or the red of Char's Zaku, which is the meme I was referencing, 3 times faster. It's not 3 times faster because it's red. It's red because it's 3 times faster due to its pilot. So, it's that marker. It's like the Red Baron, or the Red Beret of the Parachute Regiment. It's a symbol of, we don't need to hide. I don't need to camouflage because I'm the fucking best. And that's where it started. Same with Ferrari, it's iconic. They adopt the red colour. Same reason, the same sort of reasonings as to why Smokey Nagata adopted gold for Top Secret, because gold is the colour of first place, but traditionally red is the colour of performance. The same with sort of bullfighting, when you see them with the red, whatever it's called, because they don't want to hide from the bull. They want to aggravate the bull, and that's the meaning of red. Is they want to aggravate their opponents. They want a good battle. They want a fight to the death. They want to be pushed to the extreme. They're not interested in taking the easy win, and so there is symbolism there. But I think that's off topic. I can't even remember what led me down this road. But I was talking about the community and about the heinousness, that's it, the heinousness of what's come. Because now it's not people who are chasing that. Like in photography, photography I'm going to go into because I spent a decade in that as a career, and arguably I think I got about as high as a person can get independently. The only way I can go higher is by selling out. And that's an argument I've been having with myself in my heart over the past sort of 12 months, maybe a little longer. 18 months, that's been my heart, my head. I've been fighting over that, because I know that there's a limit to independence, but there's also if I'm not independent, then what's the point? And that's led into Banshee, and into learning Japanese, and into learning Danish, and trying to relocate myself into perhaps a habitat more suited for D. Roberts Photo or Banshee Interactive. Because I'm independent doesn't mean unfunded. I think that Linus Tech Tips is very vocal about this. Linus Tech Tips will go on camera and say that the audience is their boss, not their sponsors, not the audience, because if no one's watching them, then they got nothing. And that's just another leash. How are you independent if you are dependent on an audience? That's not independence. And there's also a famous quote, I forget who it's by now, but it said the true sign of an artist is not to sell a piece that has been finished and done. The true sign of an artist is to be commissioned to make a piece before you've even done it. If you can commission to make a piece before you've even done it, then you are a true artist. And I've done that. I've been commissioned for lots of photographic work before anything, just because they know me and know my work and know that I can come through. So I think by that definition, I'm ready for doing the same, but on a larger scale. And I'm not going to accept less. So as I was saying, this is the difference. This is the heinous part. If there was a peer, the way there was a peer in the past, they wouldn't communicate about the thing. They would communicate about gaming the system. It's not about the subject. It's not about whatever it is. It's about gaming the system. It's about getting the views, getting the money. Money has to come from somewhere. And they just trade one leash for another. And, things are popular because it's easy now. It would be very easy for me to do some quick cuts on CapCut, showing off how this $30 controller is better than an Xbox Elite. Seconds it would take, right? TMR. HE. 1 millisecond. You know, it's very difficult to sit here and talk about how all this affects us, how the media that we will consume in the next 10 years, the media that, you know, little David at 6 years old who knew no better was shaped by things that made by people who had these conversations around a board table. And now I'm having it to a camera because people don't exist anymore. Not since COVID. This is normality. You know, to have another person to talk to is an abnormality. And I've been in these rooms with other people who are professed photographers, and they don't like elevated conversation. You know, it's like, I scratch my back, you scratch mine. I'm just not interested in that. I'm interested in wearing red. I'm interested in that. I'm not interested in gaming a system. I'm interested in making a system that lasts. I'm interested in making sure that anything I do is done because of my choices, that my choices created that outcome, not a dictation by a market, not, you know, I didn't bend to them, they bent to me, and that is where I'm at. Whether the extent of which I will get them to do that is the difficulty. I've done it already. There's been examples where I've managed to get them to concede quite a lot of ground. How much ground I'll take is the question. And it's an inch war, you know, this is Verdun. This isn't Normandy. This is Verdun. For my history folks, you will understand the gravity of that sentiment. But I'm not leaving the lines. You know, I'm a massive Warhammer fan. I think that it's just fun. I think that if you understand where a lot of the allegory is, a lot of the satire is in it, then it's great. It's like everything. There's more rubbish than there is good. There's like 99% rubbish, 1% good. But the good stuff is really good. And like I said, where you can understand where the satire is, where the allegory is, and where the metaphor is, because they do draw from, you know, some things that actually happened. So once you understand those things, I think the Warhammer falls into place. And I really like the Iron Warriors. I'm a big fan of the Iron Warriors. Their leader left them. He kind of went nuts. Perturabo, fucking amazing guy. Back before, I suppose this is a lesson to myself, back before his one-upmanship with Dawn, Rogel Dawn, got to him. And he left his children. He left his children to be crazy. And they didn't. They held the line. They still do. I am within, I am without is their motto. And their saying is always carry a shovel. Because at the end of the day, you can always dig a trench. And I think that's where I am at in my creative journey, digging trenches. I mean, no matter what happens above, no matter what happens in front, what's behind is behind. We don't allow them to flank us. We don't allow them to concede. We don't concede ground to them. You know, we dig in, we hold out. And that's kind of the place I'm in. And I suppose that's my battle against the community. But it's all a soup. It's all a soup. I can't just say like this. None of this is related. It's all related. It's all a soup. And it is warfare right now in the industry, in the creative industry. I mean, the creative industry is always a warfare. It's the worst. Like the starving artist trope is a trope for a reason. It's bloody murder. And I feel sorry for a lot of people. I do. Their livelihoods are going up in smoke. But I think it's a sorting of the wheat from the chaff. And those times, as they say, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And we're about to see who gets going. And Glenn Schofield, who is an absolute icon, he's one of my biggest sort of, not inspiration isn't the right word, but you know, like I see him, I see what he's been doing. Like he brought back survival horror to the masses with Dead Space. I mean, this is years after the thing, years after Alien teetered off. Resident Evil wasn't even a thing. Silent Hill was an absolute mess. And he came in swinging with Dead Space. And look at where we are now. The market is dominated by survival horror. Is it due solely to him? I can't say it's due solely to him. But he certainly had a major part in swinging that pendulum. Same with Call of Duty. Call of Duty lost its way massively. And World War II hadn't been a thing in video games for 15 years. And he made Call of Duty World War II, which was, it's up there with Band of Brothers in terms of World War II media that is impactful. You know, as long as you take into account it's a game, right? But the story being told and the overall feel and flavour, which I think he does. Like, he's the flavour man. He's the MSG. Salt Bay of cool shit. That is Glenn Schofield. If you need cool shit, if you need cool shit in your game, you get Glenn Schofield in. He is the master of the video game MSG. MSG standing for make shit good. He's decided to retire. He pitched Dead Space 4, got nowhere, and decided, I'm retiring. I would love to talk to him. I don't have a line to him. I don't know him on a one-to-one level. I would love to talk to him. As I said, he's been there. He's been like, you know, like if I'm at the back of the pack in qualifying, he's been up there, you know, third, second, pole even in some cases. But he's also one of those people who I feel like to carry the racing analogy on, he's always had a bad car and he's still always done well. Like, he's managed to, you know, consistently land decent places. He's never been at the back of the pack. He's always been, you know, like, even if he wasn't polling, he's been up there. And I always wonder, like, what he could do if he had a fast car. I feel like he's one of the few in the industry who's not reached his potential. I feel like Kojima hit his stride in Metal Gear Solid 2. I feel like Metal Gear Solid 1, then into 2, that was like, and then again into Phantom Pain. I think Phantom Pain was a real thing. But I don't think Schofield had that. I mean, Amy Hennig had it with Legacy of Kain and culminating in, you know, what she did with Uncharted. But I don't think Glenn Schofield had his run. I feel like he's always had, if he had a little longer track or an extra gear, I think if he had an extra gear, I'd really like to see what he would do with that. And I don't think we're going to, unless, you know, Banshee gets off the ground and I can employ him. Because that would be cool, but I suppose if he wants retirement, he wants retirement. If anyone knows him, then I'd be really, really, even privately, I'd love to speak with him. But we've lost a big one. And where was I? Let's go into my leaving statement. Okay, so it's up here. And I've got my logo there. Banshee Interactive is leaving Reddit, and I haven't commented or anything on Reddit since then. I'll be honest, I've clicked it, sort of been turned sour by what I see, and then just been like, yeah, I'm glad I left. And it's a process, because like with Instagram, it took me a little while, but now I don't even go on there, and it'll take a while with this as well. Hello all. I have toyed with the idea of leaving the platform, But as with all social media, it is easier said than done. I have left Instagram, and if you know the provenance of D. Roberts' photo, you will understand the weight of that decision. This means it can, and will, be done. I truly wish to meet peers and engage in debate, but the entire Reddit sphere operates on misnomers. Our game dev should be hobby dev, and our age 30 plus gamers should be 30 going on 13. It has not just become a drain on my personal satisfaction, but it has shown how truly narrow the sample size is compared to broader market demographics, making it redundant for both market research or talent acquisition. I fully stand by all my contributions in this time on the platform, but cannot share the platform's sentiments. It is without sorrow, but a fair amount of disappointment that I must post such a thing. I remember a time where Reddit was devoted to enthusiasm on given niches, yet today participants mistake a right to an opinion with the equality of an opinion. This is untenable. Work continues at Banshee Interactive. David, Creative Director, BansheeInteractive.com. And that's the core of the argument. People believe that the right to an opinion is the same as an informed opinion. Not all opinions are equal. Some opinions are given from a point of what's the word I'm looking for? I'm currently switching between 4 languages, by the way. I'm using English professionally. I use Thai in my daily life. I'm heavily into the Japanese ecosystem, learning Japanese. Most of my media is Japanese. And I am obviously learning Danish. So if I forget a word, that is the perks of being a polyglot. But yeah, you know, like a lot of the stuff I see online is blind men describing rainbows. And I can't really participate in that anymore, because at what point is it them and what point is it me? And I think right now, the best thing I can say is, it's me. No one goes into McDonald's expecting Wagyu beef. So why am I expecting this from a place that clearly doesn't have it? So I made the decision. I wrote that post, and I haven't posted on Reddit since. Let's have a little look for fun. Is it? No, I tell you what, I'm not. No. If you want to have a look, you can click on my links. There it is, Banshee Interactive, and have a look at my recent posts, and you can see where my frustrations lie. So this is probably enough for one video, but I'm going to continue straight in to my second point, which is where critics are pulling numbers out of their asses on review scores. This year alone, review scores are crazy. High 80s for most things. And I just think that people are handing out numbers like it's no tomorrow. Like Oprah, you can have a 9, you can have a 9, you can have a 9. Compared to what? As the angry photographer likes to say. Compared to what? Like, there has to be a reasoning behind your rating system. And I know that IGN has good, blah, 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 whatever. Like, but it's all just nonsense. Like, if there's no definition of what good is, what use is the term? You know, this is... So this is how I think. I'm not even going to beat around the bush. This is how I think. 7 out of 10 means it's a good game within its given genre, given niche. If it's a shooter, and it's a good shooter, 7. 8 is if it's a good game, regardless of its niche. So if it's a good game that is good even outside of its genre, 8. 9 out of 10 is if it is the best of its genre. If you wrote an encyclopedia entry for shooters Could you put example Doom? Yes, you can. Example Halo? Yes, you can. Right? Understood yet? So that's 7, 8, 9 to me. 10 out of 10 is reserved for games that change how we A, view the medium, or B, view the genre. So Symphony of the Night, 10 out of 10. Final Fantasy 7, 10 out of 10. You know, I think that this is what has that game done. And I think that if we Street Fighter 2, 10 out of 10. Halo 1 even, 10 out of 10. Even many of the GTA games could fit in that 10 out of 10 slot. I think that's how games should be rated. 7 out of 10, good. If you enjoy this type of game, it's a good game. 8 out of 10, even if you don't enjoy this type of game, it's a good game. 9 out of 10, this is the best that genre has to offer. 10 out of 10, this is the best that gaming has to offer. I think 6 out of 10 then has to be, you really have to be invested in the property or beyond it as a game. So Dragon Ball Z or One Piece, Final Fantasy even, something like Disgaea. Is that not this whatever, like the beat 'em up Final Fantasy or whatever, like Dissidia, that's it. Disgaea, that's a totally separate franchise. Dissidia, 6 out of 10. If you like Final Fantasy, chances are you'll get enjoyment out of it. Stranger of Paradise, 6 out of 10. If you like Final Fantasy, chances are you'll get enjoyment out of it. 5 out of 10 is it works. 4 out of 10 is crap. And I say below 4 out of 10 is just like, I'm not even going to bother. Like, I wouldn't even bother reviewing it for anything less than that. I mean, I think, you know, there is games that especially, you know, 5 out of 10 is like your shovelware. I would say, you know, you could do a 5-star rating, because I think that anything less than a 5 is like a don't buy. Like that to me is moot. 5 out of 10 means it works. So we could even transpose that into star ratings. 1 star, it's a game. 2 stars, if you like the property, if you like One Piece, if you like Dragon Ball, if you like whatever, chances are you'll like this game. You'll see it for more than just a game. Then, you know, if you like shooters, you'll like this game, 7 out of 10. Shadow Warrior, let's say. 8 out of 10. Even if you don't like this kind of game, chances are you'll like it. Doom Eternal, say. 9 out of 10. The best this genre has to offer. Halo Reach. 9 out of 10. 10 out of 10. Sticking with shooters again. Half-Life. Deus Ex. Halo. 10 out of 10. I think that's how games should be rated. And there should be a comparison, you know. Like, I think it's quite easy. You know, if Halo 1 is 10 out of 10. If Symphony of the Night is 10 out of 10. If Dark Souls is 10 out of 10. If PT is 10 out of 10, even though it's just a demo. If Metal Gear Solid is 10 out of 10. How can you rate anything else 10 out of 10 if it doesn't improve on that? And I mean for its time. Obviously, you know, I think anyone could put out a game that could technically be better because of how technology has come by. But, you know, like the intro to Final Fantasy VI, how do you one-up that in terms of Super Nintendo? You know, Mode 7, that orchestrated, like that pushed the Super Nintendo places it didn't really want to go. Does the intro to Final Fantasy VII on PlayStation 1 do that? Yes, it does. But then does the intro to 8 or 9 do it? can't say it does. But then 10 does. Like 10, the abstraction is gone in 10, right? That looks real even now. Like I know it's still, you know, heavily polygonal, but it's, you know, it's you're not guessing what anything is. There's nothing really absent. It's like, yeah, we're getting there with 10. Does anything since 10 do that? No. So that's how I would personally sort of like argue for ratings. And, you know, like if I put Doom Eternal at an 8, like how could I put Shadow Warrior at an 8? You can't. It has to be a 7, right? If I put Reach at a 9, that's what 9 is. But again, I think I could go into this in depth. But I wanted to give a little bit of time so that I can come back with more curated thoughts rather than reactionary thoughts based on industry news that is neither new nor unexpected, to be truthful. Painful, but neither new or unexpected. So for the folks that are into retro and for the folks that are into physical, then, you know, I think that those days are gone. I think that for those who have embraced, like myself, digital, very little is going to change. I think that if you're worried about digital ownership, then you need to start supporting GOG. But at the same time, it's one of those things where, you know, like if you're worried about Steam going down, then if you start moving over to GOG, Steam could take a hit, which means that the platform, the thing that you're worrying about, like it's all a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point. Your action is one is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Number two, it's a choose your own story. But the problem is, and the reason why I don't think democracy is really a great thing, is because there's more idiots than there are not idiots. And when they're allowed to vote, then it gets diluted. And we've got proof of this. You just have a look at our economy. Have a look at America or the UK. I mean, the UK is supposed to be a democracy, but I think they've had something like 4 prime ministers that weren't voted in by the general public in the past few years. Which is, you know, this is why I'm making games. This is why I'm making video games. This is why I'm making documentary work. This is why I'm a creator, because someone needs to document this, someone needs to say this, and like Frank Herbert found out many years ago, the easiest way to do it is in fiction. You pour a little bit of salt on it, you pour a little sugar on it, like a little bit of medicine, make it a little sweeter, and suddenly you can talk about ecosystem collapse and monopolies and all sorts of things, can't you? Which is what Dune is. And I guess on that bombshell, which anyone of my age in the UK probably saw Clarkson as a little bit of a mentor figure, you know, a bit of a rebel without a cause, even though as he's got older, he's started having a few more causes. He's had to undergo a fight with cancer, so my thoughts with him today. And as he always says, on that bombshell, this is Banshee Interactive. I'm David Roberts. And remember, this is not a simulation.